Good morning, everyone. It would help if I had my sermon in front of me instead of the liturgy. Good morning, everyone. Kalimera, good morning. I think I've shared with you all before a story about a wise monk that I met in the Holy Lands while on my seminary senior trip. Even though I have shared this experience before, it is worth repeating because of the eye-opening lesson that it taught me. Deep in the valleys and deserts of Palestine, my senior class and I visited an ancient monastery. And while most abbots or yerondas of monasteries are very old, this abbot of the monastery was quite young, actually, maybe in his 40s or 50s. As he visited with us, he encouraged us to ask him questions about anything that we wanted. But we were all nervous to ask anything. So my professor insisted, "Christo, please ask a question." So I mustered my courage and I asked the Yeronda. I said to him, "Yeronda, we're all studying to become priests. So how would you say that we can become good priests?" He smiled at this question, and his response surprised me. He started by saying to us about himself, "I am not good. I get tired. Sometimes I am lazy. Sometimes I feel jealousy. Sometimes I feel anger. I am not good," he said. "People are not good. Only one thing is good. Only Jesus Christ is good. So it is not important to ask how we can be good. It would be better to ask, how can we be like Jesus Christ?" When I was in college, I would naturally find myself in conversations with my peers about religion. College is a place where people like to express themselves and to talk about their beliefs and even have debates. And one of the beliefs I would hear about constantly from my classmates was, "I am not religious, I just believe in being a good person." Now this is a nice idea to have, but as we heard from the Yeronda, who I told you about, who was not only a good person himself, but in fact even a holy person, we might say, even the best of people get tired. Even the best of people become lazy, grouchy, or upset. Even the best of people feel jealousy and even anger. So it is actually not enough to simply be a good person. We would do better to be like Christ. And how do we be more like Christ? That is what today's gospel passage is all about. Today's passage is the one you might hear people say that we get the golden rule from. The golden rule, as we all know, says that we should treat others the way we want to be treated. While this goes nicely with the idea of being a good person, Jesus Christ today calls us to go above the golden rule, to do more than simply treat others the way that we want to be treated. And really, the most powerful way to be like Christ is, we hear about the most powerful way we can be like Christ when he tells us to love our enemies today. This is truly where we see a higher standard being set than simply that of being a good person. Whereas a good person might simply tolerate their enemy or not engage with their enemy, Christ calls us to actually go out and love our enemies. When we think of our enemies, we often have a negative, immediate reaction. The mere thought of someone who has wronged us can spoil our whole mood. It can darken our entire outlook. However, the night before he was to be betrayed, Jesus Christ sat down and had dinner with the one who would commit the ultimate betrayal. Jesus Christ sat down at dinner with Judas at his table. Judas, the ultimate enemy. Betrayal is bad enough when it comes from betrayal is a bad enough attack that an enemy can commit. However, someone who commits betrayal knowingly, betrayal is a bad enough attack that an enemy can commit against us, having been formerly a friend. But someone who commits betrayal, knowing that it will lead to death, is just about the worst kind of enemy we can find in life. This is the enemy that Christ sat down with and had dinner, knowing full well what this man Judas was about to do to him. Now, we might not have enemies who are looking to betray us to the point of murder, but I'm sure we have a few difficult people in our lives. These bouts with difficult people can begin as early as our school playground days in the forms of bullies, and they can unfortunately continue all the way up into our adult lives. And while dealing with enemies or difficult peoples can be one of life's greatest stresses or difficulties, today we hear Christ call us to love these people. And why might he want us to do that? Martin Luther King Jr. has something to say about Christ telling us to love our enemies. Martin Luther King is quoted as having said, "Now there is a main reason I think that Jesus says, 'Love your enemies,' and it is this. Love has within it a redemptive power, and there is power there that eventually transforms individuals." And if there is anyone who knows about having enemies, it was indeed Martin Luther King. But instead of trying to defeat enemies, Martin Luther King was concerned with transforming people and enemies. This is the beauty of what Christ is calling us to do today. Even something seemingly as universal as the Golden Rule, Christ sets a standard much higher. The world has its standards, but they are not as high as the standard that Christ has set. If we want to make a difference in the world, we must be different than the world. Therefore, we must go further and actually love our enemies. Now, of course, this seems counterintuitive. Loving our enemies can actually be the most difficult thing we set out to do in life. But I think the idea of loving our enemies in hopes that we might transform them and alleviate a sour relationship is an exciting idea, is an inspiring idea. How much more peace we would all have if we could simply love as Christ does. If we simply remember Christ's examples, Christ's teachings, his words, then we would not have to worry about simply being good people. We would instead be transforming other people, affecting lives in positive ways. And that is what our Christian faith really is all about. It is not about the other things and the many things that we distract ourselves with. The Christian faith is about changing lives for the better, both yours and mine, especially the lives of people who can prove to be difficult to us. If only everyone strove to show this kind of love to one another, especially to their enemies, I think it is safe to say we would be living in an entirely different world, a completely better world. Not one fixated on who is right and who is wrong. The world we are living in is not up to Christ's standard. However, with his words today, we can at least raise the standard in our own lives and in our own worlds. We have the power to transform others for the better, but only if we remember to be like Jesus Christ. There are many good people in the world, but even these good people have their failings. There is only one without failing, only one who is truly good, and that is Jesus Christ. Let us remember the example that Christ sets today, and let us strive to not be good, but to be like him. Amen.